All right, let's kick off this deep dive and, dive deep into Arabic dialects. We've got a stack of articles and resources. This is going to be great. One that really caught my eye is this blog called Explore the Fascinating Dialects of Arabic.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I thought so. And, I got to say, one of the first things that really jumped out at me was just how many dialects there are. Like over 25 distinct dialects. It's just wild.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really speaks to just how diverse, the Arab world is culturally, historically. It's incredible.
So, like, are we talking different accents or like entirely different languages here?
Well, it's a bit of a spectrum, I guess. Some are closer to each other, some are more distinct. But yeah, there are definitely cases where mutual intelligibility can be pretty low. It's kind of like how Spanish and Portuguese are related, but not
Mhm.
always easy to understand, right?
Oh, okay, I get it. So the blog mentions that Arabic belongs to this Afroasiatic language family. I've never heard of that. What's the deal with that?
Oh, that's fascinating. Basically, it means Arabic is related to other languages, like Hebrew and Aramaic, which tells us a lot about the history of the region. Migration patterns, cultural exchange over centuries.
So we can trace like ancient connections through languages. That's super cool.
Exactly. It's like piecing together a puzzle. You start seeing these relationships and how languages have evolved and influenced each other.
Okay, so the script itself, apparently it goes back to the Nabatean version of the Aramaic script, which is crazy.
Yeah. That's a long journey.
Yeah.
Think about how the written word has changed and adapted over time and all the cultural exchange that happened along the way. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so in the Arab world, they have this concept called diglossia. Basically, they switch between modern standard Arabic for like official stuff and then their local dialect for everyday conversation. Kind of like having two versions of the language.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like how we might use slang with friends, but formal language at work.
Okay, okay, I see. And I'm looking at the blog and it seems like Egyptian Arabic is the most widely spoken and understood. They even say it's thanks in part to Egyptian cinema. That's pretty neat.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Media plays such a huge role, doesn't it? Egyptian films and TV shows have been so popular across the Arab world for decades, it's natural that their dialect would have a big influence.
So Egyptian Arabic is kind of like the Hollywood of the Arab world. I like that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you could say that. And, it's got some really interesting features, like they pronounce G instead of the classical Q, and they've picked up words from Coptic, Turkish, French, even English.
It's like a linguistic melting pot, right?
Yeah.
Picking up bits and pieces from all these different influences. Okay, so let's move on to Levantine Arabic, which covers a pretty big chunk of the Eastern Mediterranean. We're talking places like Jordan, Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon.
Right. And even within that region, there's so much variation. You'll hear differences between city dialects and rural dialects, influences from Aramaic, Turkish, French. It's a fascinating mix.
It's like every layer tells a story about the history and the culture, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Each dialect reflects the unique journey of its people and the influences they've encountered along the way.
Okay, next up we've got Gulf Arabic. This one's spoken across the Arabian Peninsula. Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE. Seems like a pretty big deal, right?
Definitely. And it's known for preserving some sounds that other dialects have lost.
Yeah.
Plus, it's got these unique vowel pronunciations, consonant shifts, very distinct.
So they've held on to some of the older elements of the language. That's interesting. And the blog mentions two main types of Gulf Arabic, like one for Bedouins and one for city dwellers.
Yeah, Badawi and
Mhm.
Yadari. It shows how even within a single dialect family, you can have these really cool distinctions based on lifestyle and social context.
Mhm.
You know, the nomadic Bedouin traditions versus the urban setting.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, now strap yourselves in because we're heading to Morocco. And hold on tight because Moroccan Arabic, also known as Darija, is about to blow our minds. We're talking a fusion of Amazigh languages, classical Arabic, French colonial influences, and a sprinkle of Spanish.
That's Moroccan Arabic for you. It's a beautiful, complex tapestry reflecting the country's incredible history and cultural diversity.
And after all that, it feels like we're just scratching the surface. There's so much more to explore, right? The role of dialects in modern media, the impact of technology and globalization.
Absolutely, we're just getting started. And I think one of the key takeaways so far is that language isn't just a set of rules. It's a living, breathing reflection of a culture. By understanding the dialects, we get a deeper understanding of the people, their history, their identity.
So, more than just words and grammar, it's like a window into the heart and soul of a culture.
Beautifully put.
And to all you listeners out there, if you're fascinated by language and culture, stick with us. We're going to keep digging deeper into this incredible world of Arabic dialects. There's so much more to discover.
I think you're going to be surprised by what we uncover.
So, thinking about all these different dialects, I'm curious about like how people communicated across different regions, especially, before mass media, the internet. Like, was there some kind of common language?
Yeah, great question. So for a long time, that role was really filled by classical Arabic. It wasn't like spoken conversationally, but it was this shared linguistic and cultural heritage, particularly among, scholars, religious leaders. It was the language of the Quran, classical literature. So it created this kind of common ground across the Arab world.
Okay. So is it safe to say that modern Standard Arabic or MSA is like a modern day kind of evolution of classical Arabic?
Yeah, I think you could definitely argue that. MSA draws a lot from classical Arabic, but
Okay.
it's also been adapted, right? New vocabulary, grammar structures to kind of meet the demands of today's world.
So it's like bridging the gap between the past and the present.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bridge.
Now, the blog gets into the role of Arabic dialects in the media. And it feels like there's been a real shift lately, like
Yeah.
moving away from just using MSA to something more authentic.
Absolutely. We're seeing a lot more use of dialects in films, TV, music, even social media. It makes
Mhm.
sense, right? People connect more with stories when they hear the language they speak in their everyday lives.
It adds a layer of realism, doesn't it? Like you feel more immersed in the story.
Yeah, for sure. It's more relatable. Like, think about how popular Egyptian cinema is globally, right?
Yeah.
A big part of that is the use of Egyptian Arabic. It's got this distinctive flavor.
Yeah.
People instantly recognize it.
It's like they're hearing a familiar voice. Now, the blog goes beyond just entertainment, though. They also talk about how dialects are becoming more important in the business world. They're even saying that knowing MSA just isn't enough anymore.
Yeah, and that's becoming more and more true, I think. In today's globalized world, if you really want to do business effectively in the Middle East, you need to understand the regional dialects.
So, like, paint me a picture here. Let's say I'm trying to close a deal in Dubai. Would speaking Gulf Arabic actually give me an edge?
Oh, absolutely. It could be all the difference.
Yeah.
Showing that you understand and respect their local way of speaking, it builds trust. It helps you connect on a deeper level.
So it's not just about speaking the language, it's about speaking the right version of the language.
Yeah, exactly. It shows that you've made the effort to meet them on their terms, culturally.
Yeah.
That can be huge in building strong relationships.
Now, I gotta ask, with all this emphasis on dialects, what about technology? Is it helping or hurting their preservation? It seems like a double-edged sword, doesn't it?
It's a good point. Yeah, it's complex. On the one hand, the digital age pushes towards standardization. Everyone's online, exposed to this kind of globalized way of communicating. So there's a risk that regional differences might fade.
Like, if everyone's texting and emailing in MSA, could that end up influencing how they speak in their everyday lives?
It's possible, yeah.
Huh.
But then on the flip side, technology also gives us these amazing tools for documentation, for studying languages. We've got online archives, language learning apps, even AI that can analyze dialects.
So technology could actually be a lifeline for these dialects, helping to preserve them.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for both research and education. You can
Wow.
connect people with their heritage and help them learn these languages that might otherwise be lost.
It's like giving them a platform to thrive in this digital world. Now, the blog brings up this thing called Arabizi. I'm not familiar with that. Can you explain it?
Oh, yeah. So Arabizi is basically writing Arabic using the Latin alphabet,
Okay.
like using English letters to spell out Arabic words. And often they'll incorporate numbers and symbols for sounds that don't have direct equivalents in English.
So it's like this hybrid writing system.
Yeah. It's really common online, especially among young people. It's a quick, efficient way to communicate in chats on social media.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, it evolved out of the needs of this digital age. Do you think it could eventually influence spoken Arabic?
Well, it's hard to say for sure. I mean, language is always changing, and the way we write definitely affects the way we speak. So it wouldn't be surprising to see some Arabizi elements creep into spoken dialects eventually.
It's like we're watching language evolve in real time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about technology, but what about globalization? How do you see that shaping the future of Arabic dialects?
Well, as people from different parts of the Arab world, and even from different parts of the world in general, interact more and more, Through travel, through business, we're bound to see more linguistic exchange and blending.
So more mixing and matching of dialects.
Exactly. And major cities especially are becoming these melting pots of language and culture. You hear influences from all over the place.
I wonder if we'll reach a point where regional differences start to fade away and we end up with a more standardized, globalized form of Arabic.
It's a fascinating question. It's possible that we might see some level of homogenization, but I think it's more likely that we'll see a kind of two-track evolution. On one hand, you'll have efforts to preserve the unique regional dialects, keep those distinct voices alive. And on the other hand, you'll have these new hybrid forms of Arabic emerging, reflecting the interconnectedness of the modern world.
So a balance between tradition and innovation.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that's what makes language so dynamic, so fascinating. It's constantly evolving, reflecting who we are, how we connect with each other.
It's a reflection of our shared humanity.
Absolutely.
So for our listener out there, what's the key takeaway? What should they keep in mind as they navigate this ever-changing world of Arabic dialects?
The most important thing is to remember that language is alive. It's not static. It's always changing and adapting. So embrace the diversity, appreciate the nuances, and keep exploring.
Beautifully said. We've covered so much ground, from the historical roots to the impact of technology and globalization. I feel like I've learned so much.
It's been a great conversation, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this linguistic journey. Make sure to tune in for part 3, where we'll be taking a look at some of the cutting-edge trends and technologies that are shaping the future of Arabic. It's going to be fascinating. All right, so we've journeyed through the history of Arabic, explored its diverse dialects. Now, I'm really curious about the future. Like, where is this incredible language headed?
Well, predicting the future of language is tough. I mean, it's a bit like trying to predict the weather, right? But we can look at some trends and make some educated guesses.
Okay, so let's put on our futurologist hats. What do you see happening with Arabic dialects?
Well, one thing that's definitely going to have a huge impact is, digital communication, social media, instant messaging, all that. It's creating these whole new ways of interacting, expressing ourselves. And that's bound to have a ripple effect on language.
So, like, are we talking about the birth of a new digital dialect, a dialect that's evolved specifically for the online world?
It's possible, yeah. We're already seeing new words popping up, phrases, even grammatical structures that are kind of unique to the digital space. And who knows, maybe someday those changes will start to bleed into spoken Arabic.
So the way we write online could actually end up shaping the way we speak. That's wild.
Language is always adapting, right? And the lines between written and spoken language are definitely getting blurrier, especially in the digital age.
It's like we're witnessing language evolution in real time. It's kind of mind-blowing. But it's not just digital communication that's going to shape the future of Arabic, right? What about globalization?
Oh yeah, globalization is huge. I mean, as people from all over the Arab world and the world in general connect more and more, through travel, through business, through the internet, we're going to see more linguistic exchange, more blending of different influences.
So could we see a future where the lines between regional dialects start to blur? Like maybe a more globalized form of Arabic emerges?
It's possible. But, I think it's more likely that we'll see a kind of two-track evolution happening. On the one hand, there'll be efforts to preserve those unique regional dialects, right? Keep those distinct voices alive. And on the other hand, you'll have these new hybrid forms of Arabic emerging, reflecting that interconnectedness of the modern world.
So like a balance between tradition and innovation.
Yeah, exactly. A balance. And, that's what makes language so dynamic, so fascinating. It's constantly evolving, reflecting who we are, how we connect with each other. It's a mirror to our ever-changing world.
That's such a great way to put it. So for our listeners out there, what's the key takeaway here? What should they keep in mind as they navigate this constantly evolving world of Arabic?
The most important thing to remember is that language is alive. It's not static. It's not set in stone. It's always changing, adapting, evolving. So embrace that diversity, appreciate the nuances, and most importantly, never stop exploring.
Beautifully said. What a journey this has been. We've covered so much. From the ancient roots of Arabic to the impact of technology and globalization. And I gotta say, I've learned a ton.
Me too. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible linguistic adventure. And remember, the exploration doesn't end here. Keep those ears open, keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.